should gay people go to churches that are outspokenly anti-gay? And how do we engage with friends and family members during seasons of intensely painful disagreements, especially during the holiday season? We're going to talk about all of this and more on today's show with a very special guest. I'm your host, Gilbert Gonzalez Jr., and this is The Art of Conversation. Hello, friends and first-timers. Welcome. The wait is over. We are launched. I'm so excited. This is the very first episode of The Art of Conversation, a series dedicated to try to bridge the popular gaps in everyday communication, challenging modern culture that we might come up higher in how we speak to and treat one another, and to grow in our individual personal boundaries to become stronger, wiser, healthier individuals for ourselves and society around us. Which is why it is very poetic and fitting that our first guest is who he is. For over the past 20 years, Justin Lee has been one of the most prominent frontrunners in the conversation about faith and sexuality.
When I realized I was gay, I was hurting, alone, and desperate for answers. I tentatively told a few friends what I was experiencing because I couldn't take keeping this all inside. My friends' response was to quote Bible passages at me. They never seemed to notice that the passages they were quoting had nothing to do with my actual situation. They'd talk about the Sodom story, men threatening angels with gang rape. I was a conservative Southern Baptist virgin. Gang raping angels was certainly not on my agenda.
He is best known for his work across theological disagreements, promoting grace and mutual understanding.
Many of us have basically three main tools in our toolbox for dealing with disagreements. We avoid, we compromise, or we fight. And we do. We draw a line in the sand, we raise our voices, we refuse to give in, and again, sometimes that is the right thing to do. But fighting is a tool that I find often works best in combination with other tools like dialogue. And without any dialogue, it was just causing both sides to dig in their heels, often ending up even further apart than they started.
He is the author of the massively successful book, Torn, Rescuing the Gospel from the Gays versus Christians Debate, and Talking Across the Divide, how to communicate with people you disagree with and maybe even change the world. So it is with tremendous enthusiasm, excitement, and honor that I introduce to you the very first guest in this series, The Art of Conversation, my friend, the wonderful Justin Lee.
Oh, Gilbert, I should hire you as my publicist.
I will take that job. How are you today, Justin?
I have no money to pay you, but you know.
I'll intern. How about that? Your intern publicist.
Thank you for that very gracious introduction. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, first, I have to say, it is really cool that you are my first guest. Now, I mean, I probably would have asked you either way because I've known you forever and you're like one of my best friends. But you literally wrote the book on what this series is like aiming to be. So it's like so cool that you are here today. So if you watching or listening at home have been in the gay Christian space for even 5 minutes, you're going to know who Justin Lee is. But to our listeners and our viewers, Justin, who are maybe new to the conversation or just kind of checking things out, would you tell us just a little bit about yourself, about kind of, you know, your background and what got you into doing the work that you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in a very conservative, very theologically and politically, I guess, conservative Christian home, going to a Southern Baptist church in the South. And one of the things that I was taught growing up was that being gay was a choice and a sin. Mm-hmm. And that it was my responsibility as a Christian to preach against gay people and with love to let them know that they were on the path to hell. Which for folks outside of Christian spaces sounds perhaps laughable, but for folks from that kind of background, I imagine some of them can understand what I mean by that, that was not meant with any irony. It really, the sense was, if someone is going to burn in hell for all eternity, then the unloving thing would be to just let them go. And the loving thing is to say the difficult words that will stop them from going there. That's what I thought. That's what I was taught. And it made a lot of sense to me. And so I, growing up, said a lot of things that now I can understand were very hurtful. But I didn't see them as hurtful at the time. I saw them as loving. Things that I said about gay people and about homosexuality, which was the word that we were using at the time. And this was, of course, years before. This was, I was saying these kinds of things in the 80s and 90s before we were using terms like LGBTQ. And so when I realized as a teenager that I was gay, it was a real shock to the system. That was I was the last person you would have ever expected to be gay. I was this conservative Christian kid who preached against gay people. And I kept thinking gay people chose to be gay, but I hadn't chosen it. I didn't want to be gay. I called myself straight. I dated girls. I was just never attracted to any of them.
If I may ask, Justin, how did you know that you were gay? Did you have a crush on a classmate or on a celebrity? Like, where did you have that, I think I might be gay? Do you remember that moment?
It wasn't just one moment. It was years and years and years of always only being attracted to my male classmates, to, all of my crushes, that I didn't think of them as crushes at the time, but all of my crushes watching TV as a kid were always on guys. But because being gay just wasn't an option in my world, it didn't occur to me for years that I was gay. I just knew what it was like to be attracted to guys, and that was the secret that I was going to take with me to my grave, But it may sound strange now, especially to folks who are young and who weren't, like if you're growing up now, we talk as a society so much about gay people that it would be really difficult. People still do, but it's a lot more difficult now to get to like 18 years old and not know that being gay means being attracted to the same sex.
Yeah.
But when I was 18 in the mid 90s, it wasn't something we were talking about nearly as much. I mean, a lot of the celebrities we think of as, obviously gay were not publicly out. I didn't know of anyone. I mean, Ellen DeGeneres was not publicly out. Neil Patrick Harris was not publicly out. There were not, TV shows like Will and Grace and, shows since then like Modern Family and other shows that had gay characters didn't exist yet. I didn't know, as far as I knew, anyone who was gay. I didn't know of anyone who was gay. So my only image of gay men was that they apparently marched in parades in thongs or something and did weird sexual things like that, and none of that was me. I was this conservative, introverted, Bible-loving Southern Baptist kid. So what did I have in common with sexual perverts who marched in thongs,
Yeah.
So I didn't understand that being attracted to the same sex meant that I was gay. I thought that it was something everybody went through, or at least that some people went through and you would grow out of. And then years and years went by and I wasn't growing out of it. And I had a girlfriend and I loved her. And I started realizing that other guys I knew were really attracted to my girlfriend and I wasn't attracted to her, Yeah. And so it gradually dawned on me that something was wrong, I would have said at the time. And long story short, I thought it was something God would fix. I prayed and prayed and prayed about it, and God didn't change it. And I had to eventually start rethinking all of the stuff that I thought I knew about gay people. And I ended up sharing my story online and hearing from all of these other gay Christians and then later LGBTQ Christians from all around the world who were in similar boats and who were really struggling and were in the closet and couldn't tell anybody. And I realized this was a real problem in the church, that people didn't feel comfortable being honest. And so as I started to speak out about this more, even before I knew what I was going to do, was I going to be celibate? Was I going to, marry a guy someday? I didn't know. I did know that we needed to have better conversations about it. And that is really what started me on this journey of how do we have conversations on difficult issues when we don't agree and yet when the answer is important. Mm-hmm. Because it's easy to have not always easy, but it is easier to have a difficult conversation on an issue where the answer doesn't matter. I mean, like, you and I can have, we could start many fights with people by asking them their opinion of certain films or TV shows. You ask people who are Star Wars fans, was The Last Jedi, was that a great Star Wars film or is that a terrible Star Wars film? And people have strong opinions, Mm-hmm. You could start some real fights that way.
Yes.
But in the end, it really doesn't matter, right? So we can agree to disagree in the sense of, well, we just won't talk about it anymore. It's not really important because it's an opinion. But if we're talking about politics, we're talking about religion, we're talking about life and death matters, we're talking about heaven and hell matters, well, then it's not that simple. And we do end up struggling often to have helpful conversations on issues where we disagree and where we want to change each other's minds, but we're passionate about getting the answers right. And so that's really what I've dedicated my life to, is how do we do that in a way that makes sense and still keep these people as friends and family.
Justin, you've been doing this for a long time. You've ran this tremendously successful organization. You've been an author of these great books. And I know that you even used to do debates. Something that's been said to me a lot, because I started to do debates over these last couple of years, there's a lot of gay Christians in this space that are like, Gilbert, I could not do what you're doing. Like, growing up in this culture of hearing these things about going to hell and then internalizing that and fighting with tooth and blood and nail, just going through all of that. It's very triggering for me. It's traumatic for me to continue to have people in my life that are still saying these things, that I'm going to go to hell because I'm gay. I don't know how you do it. You've been doing this a lot longer than I have, Justin. So even though I understand somewhat because I'm doing it now, how would you respond to somebody that says that? How do you do it, Justin? How do you have these conversations? Even though, because I know that you're a very empathic person, you love people, and you can, there's something about the interaction that I see that you take onto yourself. How do you keep going through that all the time? Where do you find the grace to do that?
I mean, so to me, there are kind of two pieces of this, and I'm curious to know if this resonates with you, Gilbert, but there is a piece of like, I think all of us need to get better at showing grace and mercy to people who disagree with us. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that is something every single human on the planet could get better at. And I think it is something that every single human on the planet would benefit from getting better at. When you learn how to be more gracious to the people you disagree with, the people who frustrate you the most, it seems like it's going to be a weakness, like you're going to have to stand down or something, but it actually turns out to be a great strength. It allows you to have influence in spaces you couldn't have influence before. It allows you to be more in control of your own emotional response to people when they say things that frustrate you, that make you angry. It makes you more persuasive. It makes you, it has so many benefits. And for those of us who are religious folks, particularly those of us who are Christians, it is also something that Jesus taught. It's something that we for religious reasons, for spiritual reasons, I think is helpful and important to show grace. It is all through the Bible. So there's a piece of it where I feel like everybody could get better at being gracious. There's another piece, though, where I think we have to acknowledge that not everybody is equally equipped to have some of these really difficult conversations, and that's okay. There's another Christian principle of the idea of the body, and the different parts of the body have different functions, and the eye cannot say to the hand, "I don't need you," right?
Yeah.
We need each other because we're gifted in different ways. And I do think everyone can learn to be more gracious. I don't think that means that everyone therefore must go on YouTube and have really emotionally charged conversations with people who disagree with them, which I know you have done.
The only identity I want to claim over my life is child of God. It's what He has defined for me as a man. So I base just my belief and my identity on what the Word of God says.
Does that work in reverse? Like, what if you want to be a singer or a painter or something that is positive? Do you say, well, I can't do that because I can't find scriptural support that says I can go be a painter?
One could either, if one has these same-sex attractions, could still marry a woman, or could be celibate, or could just not, or...
Do you think that's ethical for a gay man to marry a woman, to take that spot in her life that could be going to a straight man? That's not loving.
Well,
What do you think? Do you feel like you have a particular gift for being able to do that kind of work?
I do. And I do want to acknowledge that I didn't grow up in the church. And so for me, I don't, maybe there's a reason why for me, even though it affects me to hear somebody saying you're going to go to hell because you're gay. How does that not affect you? And I did go through a season where I was like, God, is that true? I've always known that I'm gay and that I never chose it and that you made me this way, but I want to be humble. These people that are telling me this, they've known the Bible longer than I have. They grew up in the church and I didn't. So I wanted to be humble. Maybe they know something that I don't know, even though I'm probably the one that has more understanding on this, but maybe I've missed something. So I did internalize that a lot. But I think that because I didn't have as many years of hearing it, it doesn't impact me the same maybe that somebody else does. I remember when I first started going to church, Justin, the lady that led me to Christ, she was getting to know me a lot. And, she was almost like another motherly figure in my life. And she had told me, Gilbert, please consider going back to church. I know it's kind of uncomfortable for you because you're in the room and you're just like, how do these people view me if they know? Maybe they know, and who's praying for me when I'm not here, that I'm going to be straight, and you can feel really uncomfortable. But she says, they need you to be there. Church is good for you to get plugged in, but they need you to be there. They need to see a face to this issue, that it's not just the gays that are those other people. It's Gilbert who comes here every Sunday that that you're hanging out with after, so her saying that to me kind of stuck with me. I do agree with you that even then it still may not be everybody's call to still go into the lion's den. But I think the other thing that helps me too, Justin, is what's given me compassion for people on this issue is kind of like what you were saying earlier about your journey, that it came from a good place. If you really believe that homosexuality is a sin and that it is somehow something that people are choosing and they're being rebellious and, oh goodness, why are they still insisting on this? Then you want to fight for them. It's like you're fighting for somebody who maybe is having some kind of an addiction with a substance or alcohol or something. Like I'm trying to get in that space of, look, even though what they're saying is so harmful and it does so much damage, Gilbert, they really genuinely believe that they're coming from a good place. They genuinely feel that way. And that does soften my heart a little bit for that. The other thing, Justin, is that it's a foundational issue. Once you become affirming, you really kind of have to go to the foundation of your faith. And for a lot of people, that's a big pill to swallow, that God may have created people differently than heterosexual people, that there could be people that God created purposely with a same-sex orientation. And top of that big pill to swallow that maybe they didn't know was a huge facet of God that you're being introduced to, there's also, well, goodness, if this is true, then there may be a lot of blood on our hands. I've learned that when you're having conversations with Christians that are not affirming, to have a lot of patience, because the big pill that they're giving us to swallow is you have a demon, or you're perverted, or you're believing the lie of the enemy. So you just need to know, you just need to be celibate and just not have a relationship with anybody. That's a big pill to swallow. The last person I debated in a public space was named Allie Beth Stuckey. We were on Jubilee surrounded together. And I actually had to give credit where it was due, because she said something that a lot of people that I've interacted with that are not affirming, she said something that they don't even say. I actually felt this was very generous of her, because they just think that it's about sex a lot. But she had said,
first, I want to acknowledge that for people who are not attracted to the same sex, that it could be very difficult to understand the pain that someone would feel to hear, hey, it is not biblical for you to get married. It is not biblical for you to be in a relationship. It's not biblical for you to love in that way.
She acknowledged the love part, which a lot of people don't. But that's the very, very big pill to swallow, is that you, in order to be obedient to God, you need to be celibate. And I'm realizing that I'm giving them a big pill to swallow too, is that the idea you have of God is not complete. He does make people like me, so there's a lot of God that you still don't know about. And the other big pill to swallow is that this stance that you've had has done a lot of harm, and there's blood on the hands of the church. So I'm giving back another big pill to swallow. So I've had to learn that you have to be graceful. You have to be merciful on both sides of this conversation. And I think that that's why me and Allie had, there was such a strong response in the way that we talked to each other, because we met each other in that love and in that respect with one another. And I think that also the way that I see it, and then I'll stop yapping for a second, is that I don't see flesh and blood humans as my enemy, Justin. I see this as a spiritual war, a war of ideologies, a war of perspectives, a war of, I know I'm going to sound super Pentecostal when I say this, but angels and demons and all that stuff. I do see that as a war that we are in the middle of. But flesh and blood is not our struggle. You are not my enemy. No matter what you believe, no matter even what you do, there is redemption, there is forgiveness, there is grace. I make a separation between the person and their views, because views can change, opinions can evolve, and we can learn, right? And I want to be that kind of person. I want to be open to learning. I love it when somebody gently can show me where I've been wrong, and I need to be able to allow somebody else that same opportunity. So I think that that's helped me.
Well, listening to you, it strikes me that you and I have actually really different backgrounds in some ways. I mean, we have different stories of growing up that are in some ways almost as different as they could be. Mm-hmm. And yet both of us, some elements of our backgrounds have made it easier for us to enter some of these conversations than it might be for someone else.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. There are multiple routes into these kinds of difficult conversations, and we can draw on certain things from our own stories, our own backgrounds. But one of the things that you and I have in common is this desire to show that empathy that you're talking about for even the people who are our, for lack of a better term, our cultural enemies, our opponents in these conversations. We want to show empathy. And one of the things I think is really important is that empathy, having empathy for a person, you're just talking about separating the person from the position.
Yeah.
And having empathy for a person, trying to understand them, trying to understand what the world looks like through their eyes, is not the same as justifying their position or dismissing the harm that their position is doing. I think about it like if you are, say, a hostage negotiator for the police, and you are trying to stop someone who's taken hostages from doing harm to those hostages. You have to have a certain amount of empathy. You have to be able to see the world as much as possible through the eyes of this person who is hurting people, maybe even killing people, doing real damage. But you have to be able to try to understand what it is they want, what it is that they are trying to do, if you want to talk them down and be able to find a peaceful resolution to this. And so it's important for us to recognize that you can hold at the same time the acknowledgement that someone's words or actions have done perhaps immeasurable harm, damage to the world, and at the same time try to understand what the world looks like to this person as a human being, as a way of trying to get through to them, as a way of trying to figure out how to respond. And those are not mutually exclusive. But I also think, and this goes back to this thing about our backgrounds, you were talking about how your background outside of Christianity gives you a certain distance that you don't have trauma from growing up as a Christian and being told these things. I think we need to acknowledge that whatever the issue is, there are some people who have trauma that's unresolved that, depending on the person and the situation, that trauma may be such that that person is not in a position now, maybe ever in their lives, to enter into these kinds of conversations.
Yes.
When you were saying earlier, people say, oh, well, I can't do what you do. For some people, I would say, actually, yes, you can, but you have to push yourself. Don't think that this is easy. I don't know. Is it easy for you, Gilbert? Maybe
no,
it is.
No,
Maybe you find it
not.
easy.
It's not easy. No.
I do not find it easy. It is difficult. It is painful. There are many times people say things that I find really deeply hurtful, and I have to hold my tongue, and I have not always done that successfully. There are times that I've been trying to have a helpful conversation with someone on an issue where we disagree, and they've said something, and I have blown up at them, and I ruined the chance to have a positive influence because they said something that pushed one of my buttons. It's not easy. But so there are some people I would say, this is not, nobody said this was easy, but if you push yourself, you can do this. It is just a skill that you have to learn. But there are other people I would say, look, if this is a place of trauma for you, maybe this is not the conversation you need to be having right now. Maybe you need to do some healing. There may be other conversations, other places where you can have, be willing to engage with folks who disagree with you, but maybe not on this particular topic, or at least not now. And that is also okay, because we are not all hands, we are not all eyes.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of people that, for lack of a better term, go through some victory in being sober, and they're like, in my faith, I really feel strongly that God got me through this addiction, and now I want to share the gospel. I want to go to the bars and I want to share this. And I'm always like, great, first of all, that you just finished like 3 months or a year of sobriety. Like, that's amazing. Congratulations. I don't know, though. Are you sure that going to the bar and doing bar ministry is going to be the wisest thing to do? I mean, and I understand that God can do anything, and I would never challenge somebody if they were like, no, I really strongly feel this way. I may ask them to keep praying about it, but I've learned, I don't want to be a hypocrite, because that's what people tell me about being gay. So, but I do think that we can sometimes brazenly kind of go back into something that, it just may not be the right area for us. Maybe if you are 1 year sober, 2 years sober, then maybe something else like NA, nicotine. Is it NA? Nicotine for smoking?
I think that's narcotics.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the A's. So, yeah. So, but I can understand that, because you can relate to the idea of addiction and things like that. I'm a little concerned to go right back into that full of temptation, because, when you are an alcoholic, it is something that you may have to battle every single day, and you may have to make peace with the fact that, unlike somebody who can just have a drink or two, that maybe for you, that's not really something that you're able to do. So, so just to kind of guard your heart and be wise about the situations you put yourself in, the atmosphere that you put yourself in, even if your intentions are great. I just think that there are some times where it's like, okay, well, there's no shame in knowing that this is probably not for me, because I can share my strengths somewhere else without putting myself in that lion's den in a way that will, hurt my progress.
Yeah. And you know what? Even if you feel very equipped to have a particular conversation with somebody, you can, and as I said, I've experienced this many times, you can end up finding your temperature rising, in the midst of a conversation that you thought was going to be easier than it turns out to be. You get frustrated. Mm-hmm. And there's no shame in saying, and I will, if I catch myself, I try to do this. You know what? I'm getting frustrated right now, and I don't want to say words in anger to you. And so I think I would like to pause this conversation right now, or I think maybe we've exhausted this. Maybe we've said as much as we can say. We're not going to change each other's minds, but I appreciate that you were willing to engage with me on it, depending on how important this is to continue. But there's nothing wrong with stepping away from a conversation temporarily or even permanently. There are times you have to. There are times that the other person is not in the right place to have a conversation, and you realize it as you're having the conversation and you're just hitting a brick wall. And you just have to say, you know what, maybe this isn't the right time for this. And that's okay. Yeah. It's okay. It is not, even for those of us who do this kind of work professionally, there's no formula that makes it work 100% of the time with 100% of people on 100% of issues. It is a case-by-case thing, and people are emotional, and that's true for all of us.
I want to talk a little bit about going to church, because we are talking about being in a call and how it's okay that maybe that's not your purpose, and that's okay that you cannot do what some of us can. Justin, should gay Christians be going to non-affirming churches? Is that healthy for them?
For me, I think this is another one of those questions where it depends on the person. It depends on what is healthy for a particular person in a particular moment in time. I think that I just so rarely is it true that something is always or never the case. I mean, there are situations, but so often we talk about this stuff, people want a hard line of it's always true, it's never true. But that is rarely, but not never, true. I think when it comes to non-affirming churches, we need both. We need people who are willing to be in a space that's not affirming, because if there are no LGBTQ people in those spaces, or no openly LGBTQ people in those spaces, then how will they ever learn? How will they ever learn that there are LGBTQ Christians who share their values and who are not the people that they've imagined in their heads that we are? It can be a mission field, in fact. I have spent a good amount of my time in non-affirming churches, and I have found it to be beneficial for me and for those churches, I hope. And I know other people who have as well, and who've had a positive impact on their churches. By the same token, it is also exhausting. I mean, ideally, a church is a place where you get spiritually fed. And it can happen that you find that your church has become a mission field for you, but you're not actually being fed there because it is work to be there. And then you may have to stop and say, okay, is this a mission field God has called me to, and I need to get spiritually fed elsewhere? Or have I done this for a season, and now this is no longer the season for me to do this? And now I need to be someplace where I don't have to kind of fight, you know, to be fully accepted for who I am. And I think it is reasonable. Both conclusions are reasonable, and it's something you have to pray about, and it's something you have to decide what is healthy and appropriate for you in that moment.
It's very generous of you, Justin. I know there's going to be some people listening and watching that are going to feel very validated in that, because I think we feel this world of shame and guilt to say, hey, look, I keep going to this non-affirming church and I don't even really know like who my real friends are. And I've experienced this when I went to a couple of non-affirming churches where it's almost like, you know, we've talked about like missionary dating, when you're like dating someone and trying to make them a Christian. There's also like missionary friendships where it's like, oh, that gay guy in the church, Gilbert, I'm going to go be his friend. And then if I can show him the love of Christ and just be his friend for long enough, then he'll stop choosing his homosexual identity. And I've actually had people in my life that I thought were my really good friends that I would hang out with all the time. After church, we would go here, we would go there. And it was several people. It wasn't just one or two. It was like 4 or 5 people that individually all had the same conversation with me. And they probably all were having it with each other behind my back. But it was just, you know, Gilbert, we've been friends for 2 years. I can't do this anymore. I thought you were learning. I thought you were trying. I thought that you were trying to do better. And my heart just broke all those times. It was like, you know, I had a heartbreak every time, because each one of those people were trying to love me into wholeness, and they kept seeing me being rebellious, that I was still gay, and that they had to just wipe their feet. And actually they had mentors tell them, well, Gilbert, if he's continuing to choose this, then you're wasting your breath with him. Don't waste your breath on fools. You know, dust your feet. You've tried to be his friend. You've lived a life of the gospel, and now you're an enabler. You know, you're affirming his same-sex orientation. And I've had my heart broken so many times. And again, I didn't grow up in this church. This was me in my early adult years. So I can just imagine that people that have been going through this. And, you know, I've had people tell me, Justin, I don't know if people have told you this, I'm sure they have, that there's this really kind of strange, like this or that they have to choose. It's either I go to get spiritually fed, I want to go to a non-affirming church, because if I go to a non-affirming church, I'm going to be spiritually fed, maybe not with the whole gay thing, but in other areas of doctrine, I do feel fed and I do feel like I'm growing. But then sometimes if I go to affirming churches that mean well, that are affirming, I don't feel the same growth. I don't feel doctrinally that it's sound. I feel like there's a lot of things that are missing in some of these churches. Even though the people are wonderful and they affirm me, I'm just not being spiritually fed here. And I feel like there's this struggle. It's like, can we have both? Can we have churches that really reflect doctrinally what I feel strongly resonates with me when I read the Bible, when I am pursuing the Spirit of God, but that's also affirming? And what I end up seeing is that there's a lot of people in our community that do just end up either going on the ex-gay side and going to non-affirming churches and just saying, hey, look, I'll just be ex-gay so that I can have doctrine. And sometimes I've seen that go in a way that has concerned me. And then vice versa, I'll just go to the affirming church, and then sometimes they don't even identify as Christian anymore. Everything that they were believing has unraveled. I know that that's a controversial topic, you know.
No, I'm really glad you brought that up. But first, I have to say, I'm so angry on your behalf that people would treat you the way that you were just describing a moment ago.
Thank you, Justin.
And by the way, this is something I get frustrated often when people hear that I do this kind of bridge building work, and they assume that if I'm willing to sit down with someone and engage with them, that it means that I'm not angry enough about the wrong that they're doing. And no, I do it because I'm angry at the wrong that they're doing. And I'm angry at the wrong that was done to you by those people. That is not... We need to be able to be friends with people that we disagree with, people who think that we're sinning, people that we think are sinning. We should be able to be friends. But you're not describing people being friends with you. You're describing people treating you as a project and then trying to coat that in a veneer of friendship. And that is not friendship. And it makes me angry that that's how you were treated. And I know other people have been treated that way too. And that is wrong. So I had to say that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
But that's just not.
Yeah, one situation, this girl was really close with me, and it was the day she graduated the program, and we were friends for 2 years. And she's just like, I wash my hands of you. And I'm like, what? Like, super close. Like, we were joined at the hip for 2 years. And she's just like, you just never listened. I have to wash my hands of you. I don't know why you're choosing this. This was like one of the closest people in my life. And I was just grieving because she was, finishing the program at our church, and she was going to move back home because she lived here for 2 years in Los Angeles and was going to go home. I don't remember that hurt more than significant other breakups I had. I felt like I was going to lose my mind because it was one of the biggest betrayals I ever felt. And then it's like everything that I experienced with her was a lie. I don't know where this comes from. I almost wonder if it's unique, Justin. I almost feel like if I was an alcoholic or had some kind of drug addiction or something, which of course everybody, people deal with. And I'm not saying that it's like that's a real thing that you deal with. I feel like in those circumstances, people are shown more mercy and more grace and more patience than the gay thing. I feel like with the gay thing, there's a different it really is in a league all its own when it comes to this topic. For some reason, it brings out things that I don't think are comparable in any other context. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Justin? Have you seen that this is kind of a unique thing, this issue?
I think it certainly has been a really polarizing topic in recent years. I think we're seeing that happen with gender identity now. It's interesting. I was just saying to somebody 20 years ago, I would talk to pastors who would say, the gay thing, our church is really struggling. We're really struggling with the gay thing. Now, with transgender people, we're not sure what to do with them, but we could imagine ourselves ending up in different positions on that. And, but gay people, boy, that's the one that's tearing us apart. And now I think a lot of churches, are in that place on gender identity, on transgender people. So, but it's certainly, it has become and has remained a really divisive topic where, unfortunately, for LGBTQ folks in general, I think we get too often dehumanized, and it becomes about an issue rather than the person. Mm-hmm. And so when you see stuff like you're describing happening, that says to me that this person saw her role as a kind of a ministry role, but it was a condescending sort of let me fix this person role. And it wasn't the image that we have of Jesus in the Gospels is that he spent his time with some of the biggest sinners of his day, not in this condescending way of I'm going to spend time with them until I fix them, but in a genuine way. His friends, people he cared about as people. And he also knew that they were sinners. And he wasn't glossing over the fact that they were sinners. He wasn't glossing over the fact that they were doing things that he didn't approve of. But that was not front and center in the relationship. The relationship was a genuine relationship. He loved them. He grieved when they were hurting. He grieved when one of them betrayed him, in fact. Mm-hmm. And so, you can say, boy, I could go down a rabbit trail on this, but you could say, well, why would Jesus choose as one of his 12 disciples, one of the 12 people who were closest to him, someone who was going to betray him? And did he know that he was going to be betrayed? And the Bible suggests that he did know, So why would he choose this guy? Well, isn't that a message about how you can love someone even when you know they're going to break your heart? Even when you know the evil that is in their heart, you can still love them as a person. And so it hurts me that people. It hurts me that this woman didn't see you that way. Didn't see you as just a person to love that she cared about, regardless of this disagreement. That's what she should have been doing, and not treating you like a project. And that should be true whatever the disagreement is. But as you say, this one has become just a particularly divisive one.
Yes. And to continue in that line of it being divisive, we're clearly talking about fighting for those relationships and fighting for understanding, fighting for connection despite our disagreements. Hard question, Justin. Do you think there's ever a time where it's appropriate to cut somebody out of your life because of this issue?
Oh. You know, my instinct is always to try to save a relationship if it can be saved. I think that our social media culture has made it too easy to cut people out of our lives.
I agree.
One of the things that's happened with app-driven dating is that because there are always more people on the apps, it makes it real easy to ghost somebody. If it's not working, you just drop them, and who cares what happens to them, because there are 100 more people waiting on the apps. You just got to swipe through, or whatever however your app works. I'm married now. I don't know, but I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong. That we shouldn't treat human beings as disposable that way. And I think the same thing about our family and friend relationships. Just because we have a disagreement, even a strong disagreement, doesn't mean we should just dispose of that person, go, chat with the people who agree with us on social media. It's easy to do, but it ends up boxing you into a place where you're just in an echo chamber of people who agree with you on everything. And those relationships are shallow. And so, no, I think the deepest, often most important relationships in our lives are with people who disagree with us on some things, who challenge us, who encourage us to think about the world in new ways, and yet who put the relationship first. And so the relationship isn't about the disagreement. The relationship isn't about you being a project or them being a project. The relationship is about the relationship. And then we also have this disagreement. Several of my close friends are people I have big disagreements with. People who don't agree with me on gay stuff. People who don't agree with me on religion. We're not the same faith, or we have radically different approaches to our faith. People who they think that things I'm doing in my life are sinful. I think that things that they're doing in their life are sinful. Whatever. We can't agree on Star Wars. But these are people who I love. And when we get together and we talk, we don't talk about all the disagreements.
Yeah.
At least not most of the time. We talk about them sometimes.
Yeah.
In an appropriate way. But mostly we talk about what's going on in our lives and what we love about each other, and all the things we have in common. So yeah, my instinct is, if you can save the relationship, save it. But I will be the first to say there are absolutely cases I know of where a relationship has become so toxic that the only reasonable way to move forward with your life is to say, it is not healthy for me to maintain a relationship with this person, at least not at this time, and maybe never in this life. I'm sad when that happens, but it does happen. I don't think it should be our first choice, but I do think it has to be an option, because there are people who are abusive, people who are emotionally manipulative, people who their presence in your life is just constantly drawing you down into a black pit, a black hole, and they're not showing any sign of changing. And then I think you've got to say, okay, this isn't healthy for me.
I think that's really great advice, saying that it's as a last resort and in special cases. I think it's okay to say that it should be the exception, not the rule. Hopefully the rule is trying to find ways that you can connect with people. I think boundaries are important, right? And I love what you said, Justin, about, if you know this about each other, that we're just not, we've talked these things till we're blue in the face. We're just not going to agree. If there's enough other things that you can spend your time and your energy discussing and sharing and enjoying about one another, I think it's a great thing to celebrate those things. I don't think that you're necessarily avoiding truth. Some people are like, well, no, I got to be real all the time. I got to be truthful all the time. Well, you are. You already know what they feel about that. You've expressed that. You've had that out. So there's no denying it. I think sometimes it's like, God, silence my mouth on thinking that I have to say something about everything all the time. Like sometimes we don't have to say everything we're thinking all the time. There's beauty in self-control and just saying silently, I know that we're just not going to see eye to eye, but I do love this person. I do love these parts of this person. But then also, like you said, Justin, some people, you may not even have that. And especially if they're aggressive, especially if they're abusive, and they're the ones that keep initiating it. It's almost like harassment. Like every time you're in the room with them, they bring it up, even if you don't want to talk about it. I think there is a way to say, hey, look, I don't think that this is going to be beneficial anymore. And I think that we need some space. It may be indefinitely, but I can't have this, which leads me to something I'd like to ask you about, Justin. When the holidays roll around and we have to have Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, or whatever it is with friends and family, loved ones, and we're in that lion's den where that person is just, maybe even it's hate. They just hate who we are, what we do, what we stand for, our jobs, our husbands, our wives, our partners, our orientations, whatever it is, our skin color. How do you engage with people during the holiday season when you don't really always have the luxury of deciding who will attend the party because you're going to somebody else's home and you know who's going to be there? Do you have any words for us about how to deal with those kind of things?
Oh, I think you just offered some great words in what you were just saying. I think if the world were only filled with people who, or rather, if you could only hang out with people who agreed with you on every single thing, it'd be very lonely.
Yes, it would be.
But of course, there are going to be people who really get your goat. People who really frustrate you because they have opinions that are really wrong on things that are really important, or at least really important to you. And I think you have to take some of that on a case-by-case basis. You have to ask yourself, do I have a chance? Do I have enough clout with this person that I could potentially change their mind on this or not? If not, then maybe it's not worth bringing it up. Mm-hmm. And also, is this something that's important enough? And also, is this something that we have time for and everything? And even if there's an issue that you think you could potentially shift this person on, and so you want to try because it's important to you. You really, they're going to vote for the wrong person in the next election, and you really, really feel like it's important for you to change their mind about that. I would submit to you that the vast majority of the time, the middle of a holiday celebration is not the most conducive to having that conversation. It is likely to go wrong. It is likely to end up with you looking like the bad guy for bringing up politics or social issues or whatever it is that you disagree on. Also, people are very unlikely to be open to changing their minds about things when they're in front of a crowd. And so these conversations are most effective if you do want to change somebody's mind They're most effective when they're one-on-one. So I think much of the time, the right answer is I'm just going to hold my tongue, change the subject, not bring it up at family holidays. But if it's something that you really need to talk about, maybe you say, hey, I'd love to have a deeper conversation about this. And maybe the Thanksgiving table isn't the right time for that conversation, but maybe we could get together another time, or have a phone call, or commit to a regular Zoom chat or whatever, because I think we don't agree on this, but I'd love to hear some more of your thoughts and share some of mine. And it always really has to be that. You can't just say, could you make some time for me to lecture you about why you're wrong, even if you know they're wrong? It's got to be, I want to hear what you have to say and also share what and you really have to listen first, even if you don't want to put them in the right state of mind to listen to you. But I think it's very rare that in the middle of a holiday gathering is the right time for it.
As the mashed potatoes and turkey are coming out, you know what I think about that? It's not the right time. I feel like there's so many.
The mashed potatoes.
Yes, food fight. I feel like there's so many. That's like such a movie or a TV show trope where like people are like passing the potatoes, and you have that one like drunk aunt or uncle that just like,
what's really wrong with the world?
Yes, those people, right? Like, oh great, can I have the tuna noodle casserole or whatever? Yeah,
I'll give you your tuna noodle casserole.
Oh my goodness, that's really good advice, Justin. I do like that, because I feel like we always think about it as the right here, right now. When I see Uncle Tom or Aunt Clara or whatever, I'm gonna let her have a piece of my mind. I think just saying, well, maybe I can, it's even a good way to diffuse it before it starts. This just came to me. What about pulling Uncle Tom or Aunt Clara or whatever to the side before the turkey comes out and says, Aunt Tom or Aunt Clara, last Thanksgiving or last Christmas, whatever, you were telling me about, how you felt about those people. Do you think maybe not tonight, because it's Thanksgiving and we don't want to, open up that kind of worms, but maybe sometime after, like tomorrow or the next day, can we have a Zoom? Can we talk about this? I want to kind of hear your thoughts about something else, or, maybe say it that way. Like you beat him to the punch, you nip it in the bud before the holiday dinner even comes out, like, because, we don't want that coming out tonight, but let's talk. That could be a great idea. What do you think about that, Justin?
Yeah, I think, if it's appropriate for the situation, and every situation's different, but yeah, I think if you feel like something's going to come up and you provide a time and place for it, that can be a way of keeping it from coming up in the wrong time. Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Or it doesn't even have to be an issue. There may be someone you're going to see at a, and it may not be a family gathering. It may be a party. Someone is going to be at this party, and you've got beef with them. And the last time you saw each other was a while ago, and it was not good circumstances, and you're both going to be thinking about it.
Yeah.
And maybe you decide to be the first person to walk up to them at the party and say, hey, it's good to see you. I know that we've probably got a lot of unspoken stuff, and this probably isn't the place to talk about it, but we should go to lunch sometime and have that conversation, because I regret that there's been this unresolved stuff between us. And I know we may never agree on everything, but it would be nice to not have this unresolved thing. Or whatever. Yeah.
That's good advice.
Boy, I know people I would like to have that conversation with. I'm not quite ready.
Yes, I know. Is it okay too, Justin, to just say, you know what, gosh, that's great advice, but I don't even know if I could do that. Is it enough for me just to be nice and look pretty and smile and do the best I can to enjoy, without making any passive aggressive comments, just to enjoy the holiday with everybody and not make a scene? Do you think that that's okay too for some people? Yeah.
Yeah, you got to know your limits. You got to know, and that's why it depends so much on the situation. Absolutely.
Next time on The Art of Conversation, we have a couple of viewer questions. This one's a big one. How can gay Christians work past shame and guilt? It has wrecked so many parts of my life. I've learned from now on, I ain't saying I'm sorry for that, because I didn't do anything wrong.
Well, Gilbert, I'm sorry that you were put in that position.
We have one last thing that we have to do. We have to play lightning round real quick. Just ask you a few questions to get to know you.
Okay.
So are you ready for this?
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I'm scared, but okay.
Yeah, I have not gone over these with him before. Okay, lightning round, Justin Lee. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Oh, I'm not good at doing this lightning.
Or
Oh, I like them both. That's not fair, Gilbert.
I know. Excellent. I'm going to get him on this one.
These are not fair at all. I don't want to be without either one of them, Gilbert.
My mind is blown.
People are always saying to me, you really need to watch these 3 TV shows. And I look them up and each one of them's got like 300 episodes.
Yeah.
What? And then people say, it doesn't really get good until like the 5th season. But you have to watch the first 4 seasons to understand.
I'm laughing because I'm one of those people. I'll be like, oh, you have to watch this new show. It doesn't really start getting going until season 3, but it's because season 3 will change your life, so it's worth it. I know this one, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay.
Or
These are such tough questions. I know I'm overthinking them.
final question.
Okay.
Does pineapple belong on pizza? Yes!
You're gonna have to split this into 2 episodes. You could do part 1 and part 2.
Yes.
You know, leave a cliffhanger about pineapple on pizza or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared. Okay.
Okay. Yes. I really should have warned
I
you.
can't do it. You just need to use us laughing. That's what you need.
I know,
Okay.
this will definitely make the blooper reel, yes.